The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff or management of Visionary-related entertainment.
Aloha and welcome to Maui Nonprofit Notes, where each week you will find us talking story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors and their staff to find out how they're working to support those with needs within our community. Maui Nonprofit Notes is generously sponsored by Pacific Source. If you're building or remodeling a home, please stop by Pacific Source's Cabinet and Appliance Showroom, located in the Waikapu Bayshard. I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. For those of you who may be listening to this show for the first time, each week during this hour we share some of the experiences of our nonprofit agencies and just how they're changing lives, changing communities, and creating miracles of hope for those with needs. Today, during the first half, we're going to be visiting with Paul Tonneson, who's the Executive Director of the Friends of the Children's Justice Center, Maui. Did I put that in the right order?
That's in the right order.
Oh,
yes.
okay. I can't, I wish
It's a
everybody
long
would.
title.
Yeah. I wish everybody would get this straight. Does Maui come first or does Maui come second? It was like, not to be critical of our newspaper or anything, but the headline in the paper was yesterday, Maui County tops state in charitable giving. And so I'm looking at that and I'm thinking Maui County as the entity, the government entity, right? And the first paragraph, it's talking about the families in Maui County who are giving. And I'm going, now, would it have been that hard to say Maui County families top the list or give the most or what? Wouldn't that have been nice?
The community.
Yeah, and make it the community. But was it, maybe other people thought that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking it because I work so closely with the Maui County.
You're obviously in the nonprofit world.
I don't know. What did you think, Gary?
I thought it meant the people of Maui County when I read it.
Did you? The headline?
Yeah.
You thought it was the people, not the government.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm biased or something, whatever they call that, when I read it. What do you think, Paul?
I thought it was the people.
Oh, come on.
But wait a minute. I cheated. I skimmed it very quickly when I was at the 76 station reading it. So I sort of picked up right away.
You read it kind of before you took on the title.
Yeah. When I saw charity, I just went right to the story.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, whatever. I'm glad to see that the Maui folks are pitching in, and of course we know they do because you and I are both in the middle of the nonprofit activities here, and we see how much it helps.
Oh, it's huge. And
how much people care about each other. And when you're looking at percentages like that, and we look at how many people we help, some of these people we help are helping others.
Yep.
That's what's the beauty of that thing. And that's what I got out of the story was, wow.
We have resource caregivers, which used to be called foster parents, actually come to us to volunteer in appreciation for what we're able to do for the foster children that they're taking in. So, time is valuable too. Also.
Exactly.
It's not always about money.
Right.
It's about other types of assistance they can help you with.
Right, and that's what that was taking into consideration.
Correct.
Was all kinds of assistance that was being given. And so it made me feel good. After I read the story, I felt really good about what we do to help people. Maybe it's the first step or stages of help that we see, and then that what goes around comes around.
Yep.
Or comes around, goes around, however that's said.
And I also think it's, we set an example in Maui County for the residents through the collaborations of the different agencies. They don't see a lot of waste here.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's funny because I just went to D.C. for a training, and half-a-day training was on the emotional giver and the investment giver. And the investment giver wants to know where their money's going and how is it impacting their community. And it's true, So when people do see, like the Friends, 11% operating costs, it's unheard of. Granted, I'm the only employee, so that's why we have it. But, when people do see that, they see right away 89% of their dollar is going to serve the children in our mission. So That's important to a lot of people
Right.
that think more on the business aspect of it.
Right.
You know.
Is this a good thing to do?
Right.
And whereas the other giver,
Is going to go with the
the
story. that-
emotional is trying to fix a cause or
Correct.
be a
Yep.
part of something
Yep.
being changed.
Somehow their life was touched by something, that whatever the agency may be involved with, so they have an emotional attachment to the causes.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, Maui County, we're proud of you. Thank you so much for actually assisting us in what we do, big time.
We wouldn't be on the radio show without the donation
That's
from
true.
Pacific Source.
That's true.
So,
Thanks to Paul Halverson and his crew for
Right.
keeping us on the air.
Yep.
And like he said, I could buy commercials or I could sponsor your show. And I said, hey, I think that's a win-win.
yeah.
So thanks, Paul. You're one of the leaders out there in the movement towards helping each other. So now, getting down to the friends, we've kind of wasted some of your time.
That's all right.
Sorry about that.
Not a big deal.
But I just think that it's worth calling attention to, because there are some people out there who think what we do is, I wouldn't say frivolous, but like we what's the word I want?
Well, I think nonprofits from the past, until they put tighter reins on, had a reputation of not being fiscally responsible. I think that's, but that's in the past, and it's not geared towards Maui County. It was geared towards some national organizations.
Right.
That 89% of the money was going to the staff and 11% to the cause. And, it's understandable. There are higher operations, but, where's the comfortable balance on that?
Right. Right. Well, I think that at least of the nonprofits that you and I are most familiar with through our work with the Nonprofit Directors Association, all of them are pretty lean, clean running
Yeah,
machines.
Right. Yes.
They're watching down to the pennies
Yep.
as to where the money's spent and how it's spent and how it can do the most good for the community.
And I think a lot of that has to do also with the boards. Again, going back to the article, the community here is so supportive of each other. And not just the community members, the residents, but also the community of the nonprofits. You just talked about the Maui Nonprofit Directors Association. We're one of the only ones in existence. We are the only one in the state of Hawaii. Sherry Dotson from Habitat and I got approached by a woman who runs a nonprofit in Yukon Territory, Canada. And she found us online and said, how do you do it? We can't get our nonprofits to come together, And that's a huge thing here on island.
It is, yeah.
For the Friends, the Rotarians started us 25 years ago. And a lot of people don't realize that. But they were community members who saw a need and said, how can we address this need? And it's been 25 years. This is our 25th anniversary. And we're going to recognize a lot of those members. October 9th is our big annual fundraiser up at the King Kamehameha Golf Club. And, there's still a bunch of them around. Millie Boring, and Judy McCorkle, Tom Lutnecker. I mean, quite a few of them are still here and still involved.
Still Rotarians.
And still Rotarians,
Yeah.
correct. So the Friends love my job. People think it's a sad job. It is. The stories is sad, but the impact is very powerful. When you get the thank you letter from a kid, and again, collaborating, we donate toys to the farm, which, it's a battered woman facility with their children.
Right, the Maui Farm.
Yeah. And, last year, the last few years, I've been able to go up there when Santa Claus comes. And, last year, it brings tears to your eye. You see a 3-year-old kid jumping up and down saying, this is the best Christmas ever. You know what I mean? He's in a shelter, but he's safe.
Right.
So he has a sense of security. You know what I mean? And, then you look and say, that's why you do what you do. That's why you collaborate with all these different, especially our Christmas program. We give out like 1,700 gifts
Wow.
annually. This year we're going to actually collaborate with Maui United Way to do bigger and better. And that came from Mike Victorino, believe it or not. He approached us and said, why so many toy drives?
Right. I remember him making that comment.
Yeah, remember? At the Maui Nonprofit Directors Association. And so it's not that we don't listen. So I sat down with Locks and I said, why so many? I understand with the Friends, there's confidentiality issues because of sexual or physical abuse.
Right.
So we have to keep some limited out of the public's eye. But when Locks and I sat down and talked about it, we said, if we collaborate, we're not going to probably have to say no to any kid, And the joining the forces, she has a staff member that can focus on that a lot more instead of me working 65, 70 hours for the month of December.
Oh, come on. What else would you do?
I know. But so again, the collaboration is huge. And the Friends really push it. We collaborated with Hui Malama. They were struggling to get a computer center.
Right.
We saw the need. We reached out again to the community. Echo Cabinetry came in and pretty much costed out all the cabinetry. All the labor I did on the weekends with some other volunteers. We had another guy come in and set up all the computers and program them all, and all free of charge. And now they have a 10 computer station lab at Hui Malama Learning Center. All these kids are going to be better educated for having internet access.
Right.
So.
Now, does something like that happen as a result of Hui Malama coming to you, or is it something that as you're over there working with them, you see this need and you've got the time to go and approach some of these people to help you put this together?
Well, I volunteer there.
Okay.
But I didn't want that to affect the board's decision. I volunteer once a week. They do have some children who have issues. So my approach is anger management, but I didn't approach them. Like we did 3 anti-bullying videos that they made, and they told me they were bullies, and I told them, then you got all the knowledge I need to do this. And every child that said they were a bully, when you hear these videos, they're online on MauiCJC.org, they're all remorseful. So we're teaching them that their behavior has an impact, and they're addressing their behavior. So this is a project through the Friends, with me going there once a week, that we've actually been able to reach out to these kids before they get to a next stage where, they're in the criminal system or whatever it may be. Reach them then, have them be leaders. And it's working. We've done quite a bit with them. And again, we saw a need, we saw a struggle. Financially, we were able to do it. A lot of times when we have things that come out of not so much the norm, a lot of my board members will sit right in and say, you know what, I'll give you X amount for that. I'll give you, not even taking it out of the foundation. And again, that goes back to community members. They're volunteers for the Friends. So I'm actually, as you can tell, very proud. I served on the board for almost 12 years before I actually took over as executive director, so it was something that I was very passionate about anyways. So the Friends do a lot of good.
Yeah, and a lot of it behind the scenes.
We're totally behind the scenes. I remember being on the board and everyone was like, I tell people I'm on the board for the Friends, and they say, who?
Right.
We've gotten more involved with the community. We've reached out and sort of expanded ourselves a little bit, so there is more visibility. And due to that, there's more financial resources that have actually come in. Again, looking at the investors, seeing 11%, or people hearing the stories of these children. I have people say to me, you have abused children in Maui? Because they're sitting on the mainland thinking it's paradise.
Right.
No one gets abused in paradise.
Right.
None
of us have to work either here.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. We all enjoy the hotels and the water all the time.
Yeah. So, and we just actually, Miss Hawaii, Fletcher Tova, is amazing. She has just taken us on as her cause. She's taken on assisting foster children and children of abuse and neglect. So you can go to our Facebook page. And, there's another amazing community member here on Maui who, again, saw a need, said, how can I help you with this need? So she's going to be a spokesperson for the Friends,
Terrific.
free of charge.
That's great.
So the four-lettered word we all like, free.
Free.
In the nonprofit world.
Right. Speaking of that, no, I'm not sure that carries over right, but we're going to take a free time out here for just a minute.
Cool.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in Central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back, and this is Maui Nonprofit Notes, the weekly radio show where we talk story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors and their staff to find out how they are helping to keep Maui, Maui. Before the break, we were talking about the image that everybody has of Maui being such a perfect place to live. There's no crime, there's no problems, there's no bullies, no whatevers. And so why do we need an organization like Friends of the Children's Justice Center?
And obviously the Rotarians saw a need 25 years ago. Growing up, I grew up in an abusive environment. And back then, when the beating started, the neighbors closed the windows. There wasn't no CPS, Child Protective Services, or anything that was around for that. Again, education and awareness is so important. People don't tolerate it anymore. They are looking out for the children rather than just turning a blind eye to some situations. And a lot of times you see that even to today, well, we knew something was happening, but now the child's passed. We didn't think it was that bad. Cases like that nationwide. Because child abuse, it comes a lot of times out of frustration, the anger, poverty, especially like when, everything collapsed in '08, so many people lost jobs and a lot of children suffered because of that. It just puts people into a bad space. And again, collaboration, we have the whole Ikaika partnership with over almost 50 members here on Maui that deal with child abuse and neglect. And it's all about teaching parents tools. Just doing something simple when you know your neighbor's stressed and they got 3 kids and she might be single. Mm-hmm. Offer to do something. Mow her lawn.
Help out.
Can I pick the kids up for you? Can I drop them off for you?
It's a heavy load. And
yeah.
Just sometimes a few minutes of your time can make all the difference in the world.
It's called kind time. That's what I call it.
Kind time?
Kind time.
There you go.
Yeah.
When you say 50 different, is that 50 different organizations or
yes
that are working on
community members?
The issue, okay, and the issues. We're talking now when we talk about child abuse, we're talking about small infants,
zero
straight up to adulthood
18,
almost.
Yeah, 0 to 18.
Because it doesn't. Does anybody? And I'm asking this because I have no idea. Maybe a very dumb question, but I'm going to ask it on air anyway. I'm thinking that abuse like this doesn't start when a kid's 10. It started when they were little, and
yes.
It was different phases of it, and maybe has ratcheted up to where it's really serious abuse by age 10 or something. But it didn't just happen.
Right. And, I was fortunate enough to take a 4 and 5-year-old brothers out of a situation and raise them. And, they're still affected to this day at 21 and 23 years old, from the trauma.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of that turns into when you see a problematic child, I look at them differently. Who broke them? they're broken.
Right.
They're used to consequences, especially if they've been beaten or whatever. Getting slapped up on the wrist by a judge or whatever it may be is nothing compared to what they've been exposed to in their lives.
Right.
And that's like our partnership with Hui Malama and different types of programs here, like the Carlo program with the Maui Police Department. We want to get involved in these. We want to get to these kids and fix them instead of constantly giving them consequences.
Right.
And that's generally what our system does. Everything is a consequence for your behavior.
So can they be fixed?
Yes, absolutely.
And is part of that is taking them out of the situation they're in and putting them into a new environment.
Breaking the cycle. That's a project I'm working on right now. And I draw a big black circle, and I draw a green exit ramp. And on the exit ramp, it has a hotel, it has a gas station, it has a restaurant. So you can get your fuel, you can recharge. Okay, you need sleep, and you need nutrition. Okay, and this has been very successful with the Friends. We've been working with some youth with this for over a year. They get it. They're in that black hole. But there is options. There is an exit ramp.
But they can't just take themselves out.
Well, we've had that. We've had
Have
actually, yes, we've had youth go and report situations at home and actually be removed and put into foster care.
At their request.
At their request.
Interesting.
So, again, I know, going back to my personal experiences, I had a best friend and his dad was the police chief, and, I wanted to stay at that house. I wanted to live there. I really did. I just wanted to live there because I didn't want to have to go back to the consequences or whatever in my environment. That was my exit ramp. And it actually helped me a lot. Even though I wasn't there 24/7, I saw some normalcy in the world. I saw some people that really cared, and understood and looked out for a child that was in need in some form, Mm-hmm. When we called him Big Ed, my friend Eddie's father, when he was dying, I thanked him. I said, you made a huge difference in my life. And that's, you have to get to kids before they get to a point where they're into drugs, they're into criminal behavior, or self-harm. I mean, drugs is self-harm, alcohol is self-harm. They're trying to numb something, So that's something the Friends is part of our prevention effort, is really looking into. How do you break that cycle? Because it is a cycle. It can become generational because it's normal to them.
Right.
That if mom gets you mad, and I saw this with the 4 and 5-year-old boy I took. When I would bring him to visit the mom, I remember I bought him wiffle ball bats and wiffle balls, and we're going to go play wiffle ball. And one of them had a wiffle ball bat in his hand, and his mom was drunk. But, I took him over to visit him, and she did something, and he might have been 7. He just started wailing on her with the whip. But that's what Dad did.
Oh, I see.
Dad wailed on Mom and the kids. So that's what you do when someone gets you angry. So to him, that was normal.
Normal behavior.
But when I stopped him, he just broke down and started crying. Again, he was broken. You know what I mean?
And he didn't know what the options were.
He didn't know what the options were.
Nobody had ever showed him there was another way.
But every time Mom got you upset, this is how you handle Mom.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's definitely, everything that's broken can be fixed.
Do families, extended families, play a big part in this or not?
Huge, and especially Maui County. We have no state facility that houses foster children. They're all in homes. And it's because of the Hanai families that come in and take over. You have so many grandparents raising children.
More and more every year, it seems.
Oh, yeah. Because they'll step in, whether, the son or daughter is obviously not in control of their life or the situations in their life right at this point, that they step in and take into the child, So, yeah, it's something to be pretty proud of, that we're not sending these kids to a state facility where they're bunked with 10 in a room or whatever it may be on the mainland, that they're actually given some dignity. And that's the whole purpose of the Friends. We want to start giving them self-esteem, start rebuilding their dignity. Think about a 5-year-old girl getting sexually assaulted. she doesn't know why she got sexually assaulted.
Right.
But she knows the fear and everything she went through, so it does affect her. So that's where the friends can't come in. We start the healing process.
She doesn't know exactly what it was. She just knows it was bad.
Bad. Could have been painful. Whatever it might have been, you know, and it wasn't something she chose to participate in, you know. And that's where the friends, since day one, have stepped in and said, how can we start the healing process? You know, that's a big part of our mission. That word we use over and over in board meetings, you know, the healing of a child. You know, I look at other children that might not have been sexually assaulted or, you know, or have come through the friend system, but something somewhere, someone did something to affect the behavior of that child. You know, cutters. You know, you hear about cutters. Why
Right.
are they
hurting themselves?
Because it numbs their brain. You know, it's funny, I volunteered for a shelter, and they gave everyone, back then called Walkmans,
Yeah.
you know. And that's the first thing when the homeless came in and they got into the program, they all got Walkmans. And I asked the director, I said, why do you give them all Walkmans? And he said, so they don't hear the voices in their heads.
Oh.
You know, it was part of the program. It's distracting
Interesting.
for them, so they don't have to use something else to distract them. The music is distracting.
Interesting.
You know, so
Interesting. Walking to a different beat
yeah.
with the
So
Walkman on. That's interesting. Very interesting. Now, at what point do kids start to realize something's different about their home?
well,
Or what wakes them up to that?
again, I can go back to personal experience. I knew there was something wrong with my home, but shame is a big thing. Okay, you didn't want to tell people what was wrong with your home. You know what I mean? Because I hate to say it, and the parents are worse than the children. Kids are judged by their peers. So if you're showing up dirty or dirty clothes or no socks or whatever it may be, or in my circumstances, my family wasn't the most respected family in my town, and I'll never forget, I made a really good friend, and I walked about a mile and a half. He asked me to come over and hang out, and I was about 8 years old, and I was unsupervised naturally at that age, so I walked about a mile and a half, and I remember him opening the door and said, my mother said I can't play with you.
Ooh.
And I remember just that feeling, like, what did I do? You know what I mean? Here I'm trying to go to a healthy situation, but all the mom sees is an unhealthy situation, which is natural.
Right,
Protect my
right,
child, you
right.
know? So, you know, I think we need to be a little more open-minded about why do children behave the way they do.
It's a good point.
You
Good
know.
point. It's not just the action that they're taking right now. It's what brought them to this.
What brought them to the point to self-destruct if
Yeah.
they're doing drugs or alcohol? What brought them to the point that they're so angry that they're assaulting other people? You know.
Interesting. So now, getting back to the formation for the Friends of Children's Justice Center, we obviously have an agency, the Children's Justice Center.
Yes.
That now, what kind of kids are involved in that, or how do they get involved in that?
Okay. So the Children's Justice Center is a state-run judiciary facility. The Friends are housed inside. We have a little office in there. And it's part of our mission to support them. It's in our mission statement to support food, different things for the children when they come through. That's the first contact a child will have with the judiciary system when an assault has occurred. So what they've done is they usually the Child Welfare Service or the police department or both as a combination bring the child to the facility. If anyone's never been there, it's very child friendly. It's filled with stuffed animals. We have games and all kinds of things when they come in to de-escalate them a little bit. And then they're brought in, like if you watch on Law and Order, they're brought in and they're videotaped and they're interviewed by a professional psychologist or psychiatrist or therapist will come in and work with them. So that is the purpose, is to find out the information of what did happen
Right.
through the child.
Right.
And then
Now, at this point, is the child a suspect of something that happened?
no, they're
Or
the victim.
They're the victim.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're being brought in there for protective custody.
They're being brought in, say there was an allegation of sexual assault.
Okay.
Or they went to school and the nurse found something that she was concerned about. That child would be brought right from the school to everyone is a mandated reporter. Anyone dealing with children, it's a law in Hawaii, so they have to report it right away to the police department and child welfare service. So then that child is brought in, and then the child in the situation is evaluated to warrant any further investigation through the prosecutor's office and whatever.
And then at some point, they're either sent back or they're put into a foster
Correct.
situation?
Yes.
While this matter is
going through the courts, if it's going or being presented to a grand jury or whatever it may be. The key is, the main focus is the protection of the child.
Right. The child is not out of it.
Right.
Out of that situation.
Yeah. How do we protect this child?
Right.
What is the best way? And a lot of times, the child can go back to the mom or dad if it's a separated couple or whatever it may be. The key is with child welfare service, they don't want to break up families, and everyone thinks they break up families. They want to reunify them. They want to make them whole again. And that's why there's so many different programs here on island to help with that process, like the fatherhood involvement team with Maui Family Support.
Right.
They get these dads that have had some struggles, but again, it goes back to everything's education. Educate them.
Right.
Give them tools. They have an empty toolbox.
Right.
They don't know how to be a dad.
It's that handbook that doesn't come with the kid.
Or they were taught the wrong way to be a dad by their dad.
Right.
Again, that goes back to the cycle. So,
right. So then the friends step in to assist with taking care of this child while
Correct.
they're in the protective.
It can be medical.
Okay.
It can be transportation. We really want to start rebuilding that child's self-esteem. A lot of times children are manipulated by pedophiles or whatever and convinced that they are doing something wrong, or if they tell something's going to happen. So a lot of horseback riding, hula, any type of sports. We deal a lot with MAPA. And believe it or not, an introverted, fragile child that's just been traumatized will be an outstanding student at MAPA.
Interesting.
Because they go into a safe environment, and generally in the arts, children are not as judgmental. They're more, open and loving, to each other. And that's been a great program, the YMCA, we work.
Backing up to MAPA, and at some point they're taking on another persona or playing a part.
Correct. It gets them out of themselves.
Right, which is not them, and it's more like who they want to be.
Yep.
Or they would like to be,
Yep.
or they've seen somebody who is like that.
Right.
Interesting, and I can see where that would make a big difference. But now, what kind of a time frame are we talking here? The average child is in this, if there is such a thing as an average situation.
An average situation, I wouldn't put a time on it because I think every child's different and their circumstances may be different. Child in Hana will not have as much services available as, say, a child in Wailuku where everything is centralized for them. So we don't put a time limit on a child.
Okay.
We unfortunately have had children from birth and still up until they're 18, because we do 0 to 18. We've assisted them throughout the years in one way or another.
So they could come back into in and out of the system?
Systems, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Depending on the situation at home, once it gets worse or better,
Correct.
and so on.
Correct.
Or as the courts have the opportunity to make a determination, or if there's space available somewhere.
Yep.
There's lots of obviously pieces that go into this. But now I've heard you say that there's times when the kids, when they're brought in, they have nothing. I mean, they have no clean clothes.
Correct. Because they're removed from a situation, and a lot of times, I keep going backwards. I used to buy the kids before I actually took them clothing, and I would bring them over because I was involved in their life prior to removing them from the mothers, the two foster kids, and she would sell the clothes.
Oh.
And tell me that someone stole them out of the laundromat because they lived in a housing project. And, I knew better, but A lot of times these people can't afford to clothe their kids.
Right.
I mean, they just can't. They don't have the means. And again, it goes back to now there's another stress on them. You know, they're not, a lot of times they're not bad parents. They're in bad situations.
And they don't know how to
Correct.
fix it.
Right.
And so it just escalates.
Yep.
On that note, we got to take another break. We'll be right back.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in Central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back again. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes. We're talking this afternoon with Paul Tonneson, who's the Executive Director of the Friends of the Children's Justice Center, Maui. How many, I don't know whether you've got this number on top of your tongue, but roughly how many, I keep saying kids, and I remember
Children.
when that guy says, don't call them kids, they're not goats. How many children in a year would come through the system?
Probably directly through the Children's Justice Center, maybe 100.
Okay.
But through, a good way to explain the Friends is we're the center of the spider web. We deal with almost 28 social service agencies that can't fulfill needs. And this is, again, why the Rotarians saw a need for this. That their grants, or if it's state, federal, county, whatever, we deal a lot with the state, federal, and county agencies, can't fill a need, they come to us and ask for assistance. Because we have no state, federal, or county funds.
Okay.
We're 100% on foundations and private individuals.
Okay.
So they come and request. We don't deal directly, we don't have any programs directly with any involvement with the children directly.
Okay.
I said directly twice, but that's
Right.
right.
That's good.
So,
Emphasis.
Yeah. So they'll come, and school registration's a big thing. So this time of year, believe it or not, July and August, our fiscal year starts July 1st, we do 25% of the request, of over 800 requests annually, come in the first 2 months of our fiscal year. So it slams us. But that's good because it's back to school.
And the reason that they come to you is because they have no new clothes,
They have no clothes,
school supplies.
School registration, you have to register,
Oh, right,
school
right.
uniforms.
Right.
And again, going back, you got a poor single mom, maybe she lost her job, maybe she had health issues. It's not always, everyone thinks drugs or alcohol. It's not always that situation.
Right.
Doesn't know what to do. Thank God there's places out there that say we can help you.
Right.
We can buy you children uniforms. They will fit into school, and things like that.
And that takes us right back to the collaboration that we've been talking about,
Yep.
because the 28 agencies that you work with, was it 28, right?
Yep.
That you work with all know you are the go-to person
Correct.
for items like this.
Correct.
So it's not like we have 28 different organizations doing this.
No. Right.
We have 28 organizations who know that you do it.
Correct.
And then, and vice versa, you know what those other 28 agencies do should you need their resources for the next step or whatever for this child.
And that's like what Ho'ohui Kaika is. All those agencies belong to the Ho'ohui Kaika Partnership. And then we have private community members. We have members from the Micronesian community. We have doctors and therapists that belong. And we get together once a month and brainstorm, and it's amazing that people sitting at the table will say, wow, I didn't know that resource was available. I didn't know that resource was available. So again, it goes back to collaborating and not creating little silos, like
Right.
This is my grant, this is my money, and I'm going to stay over in my corner
Right.
and not play with you guys. And that goes back to Maui Nonprofit Directors Association. I know I don't know exactly how many years, but Gladys Spicer was one of the
Right.
first.
Yeah, we're talking 35 years or so.
Correct. So we've set a great example of bringing all these different nonprofits together to brainstorm, and the have and need wall. We created it.
Right.
Once a month we meet, and we created this wall of, I have a bookcase I want to get rid of, and someone's got a need for it, and then Habitat steps in and says, well, we have a truck because it's too big for this lady's car. So a collaboration to me is huge.
Right.
I mean, you get so much more done. And I'll touch on this. Last night was the first ever. Keith Regan put it together with Lynn in the background, not always, but we did 100 Men Who Care. And it's 100 men in Maui County that got together, and this was the first one, so we hadn't hit 100 yet, but the response since last night has been amazing via social media. We had 50 some odd people show up at Tante's, talked about the nonprofits, talked about what they did, and you could nominate a nonprofit, but you each bring $100 check.
Okay.
Okay, and at the end of the night, they represent 3 nonprofits. Then they send around and they do a ballot to vote.
Okay, now when you say you can nominate a nonprofit, this is tonight's proceeds are going to go
directly
someone,
to
some organization.
Right. So they talked about the Boy Scouts. Dr. Kepler is on my board. He talked about the Friends. And then we talked about Family Services.
Mm-hmm.
These are guys that are busy, and I joined the group because I am busy, but it only meets 4 times a year. But the impact they do in one night by voting one of those nonprofits in was over $5,000 last night by the time you're done.
So if you had 50 guys there with $100 checks,
There you go.
after going around and doing some verbalization about each of the organizations that were nominated by someone who was there, discussion and a vote's taken, and it's all or nothing.
Yep.
One organization walks out of there with that $50,000.
And it's very fair. The nominations are pulled from a hat, and they pick 3. Then the 3 people get up and represent it. Dr. Kepler represented the Friends last night. He happened to be there along with me. And they allow people to think, which do you think out of these 3 tonight we want to sponsor?
Right.
And so the next time you can't be nominated again for 2 years. So they've got it all down. This is something that's a national movement.
Mm.
So Keith researched it and found out, I guess, Lynn, there's 100 Women Who Care group on Maui.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, which I didn't know about. So, and that's where he got the concept, and he did a lot of research. And, how can you have a big impact in 1 hour? Is basically what it was. How can you make a difference in your community in 1 hour?
Right.
And everyone loved it. I mean, today on Facebook, it's like, why didn't I hear about this? So, I mean, it's going to grow. It's going to grow to the 100. Keith was sharing last night that there's groups that have a couple hundred. They call them the 100-plus men who care, because people are busy. They do want to make a difference, and they don't have a lot of time. But to give up an hour 4 times a year, or say even 2 hours because everyone was chatting afterwards or whatever,
Right.
to have an impact on a nonprofit in Maui
Well,
community.
that's incredible.
And
Now, the conversation or the discussion about the agency does not include the executive director because they're probably not there in most cases.
I joined because I want to make a difference in
Right.
the community.
Right.
I didn't join for the Friends. I joined as a community member.
Right.
And I hate to say it, the Friends got picked last night, and I actually got up and apologized. I felt very awkward, because I didn't.
Right.
Dr.
Right.
Kepler presented us, but I want to be able to make a difference in other nonprofit worlds, and I don't have a lot of time.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I sit on a bunch of boards or whatever, and I'm always on the go. So,
Right.
so to do it 4 times a year, it's
Well,
doable.
like I say, traditionally the executive director would not be there, so
Right.
it's probably a board member or somebody who has been assisted by an agency who would bring up that name
Yep.
and do the speaking on their behalf.
Or even just a volunteer. Like
yeah.
we had Boy Scouts last night, and they got up and did a great presentation. A Moore Family Service. I don't know if you know, but Keith Regan's son received
Right,
this
was helped
services.
by
So
them.
that was his that was pulled out of the hat as an option. So he spoke on behalf of them. So
Interesting.
and you don't have to be a member to be a nonprofit nominated, just so you know that.
Well, yeah, and you normally wouldn't be a member.
Because next time I'm going to have to nominate someone. No, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
you know, you don't have to be a board member to attend or whatever. You don't have
Right.
to be part of a nonprofit. You
Right.
just want to be part of someone that wants to make a difference in our community.
Right. And this is one way to do it.
So
That's
that goes
great.
back to the headline.
The
you
headline. Maui County households,
Maui County residents
residents.
or community.
There you go. Yes.
They left. Yeah.
Yeah. All of the above.
Yeah.
Which, as you say, is fabulous. So we have we've brought the Friends of the Children's Justice Center up to, I think, today.
Yep.
We've got roughly 100 children that are brought in to be served through
the
the Children's
facility.
Justice
Right.
Center. But it doesn't stop there.
We serve about 800 children per year.
Okay.
There's a lot of intervention, which is good, and prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times these families will get to work with Child Family Services, parents and children together, prior to anything escalating to, you know, physical or sexual abuse or whatever it may be, which would warrant them to have to come to the Children's Justice Center. So a lot of these nonprofits are doing some great prevention work ahead of time. So we help a lot of those kids. If a mother does come in struggling, the kids have no clothes, as long as they fall under the category of our mission, which is abuse and or neglect, we will assist the child.
When you were talking earlier, you were talking about how your neighbors close the windows
Yeah.
when the beatings start or when the yelling starts. And that's when the yelling start, I think, is probably when a lot of people turn just a deaf ear.
Yeah.
It's like it's not happening, or they jump in their car and leave for an hour because by then it'll be over and they can come back home. But instead of doing that, to get involved and yet not be involved is a fine line.
911.
That's what to do.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, they'll come out, or they'll have Child Protective Service or Child Welfare Service come out. Again, it goes back to a child has no defense.
Right.
You know, you might think to see the kid out of control. Well, why is he out of control? Some reason behind it, you know what I mean?
Something's happened.
But some neighbors might say, well, he's a little, you know, so-and-so, and he's always running around causing trouble. Well, he's acting out, you know. So to me, yes, call 911. Get someone over there to, even if it's, you know, you could help the parent at the same time. Maybe there is a
Right.
situation where the anger is coming from frustration from whatever financial or drugs or whatever type of situation that's in that household. There again, prevention is better than the consequences the child will suffer
Right.
when it escalates.
And the earlier in their life that intervention happens, the better.
Correct.
Wow. Heavy story. It says a heavy topic.
Yeah, that's like I say. A lot of people say, "How do you do it? How do you read these?" Because I have to read the stories, day in and day out, of what happened in the lives of these kids. You know, is it sad? But it's also rewarding that I'm going to have an impact on that child's life. You know, what we're doing I shouldn't say we, the friends,
Right.
are going to make a difference in that child's life some way, somehow. We're going to give them a little glimmer of hope.
Right.
We're going to try to rebuild their self-esteem. New clothes. We're going to give them some dignity to go to school.
Right.
You know.
In the 25 years of the Friends, there have obviously been some success stories. I would hope a lot of success stories. Have you ever had somebody come in and volunteer saying, "You guys help me"?
Yes, all the time.
Okay.
When we do the Keiki Fest down at the college that Kiwanis puts on, again, another community member reaching in. Kiwanis does that. Kiwanis does Shop with the Cop every year for the foster children. People come up to our booth constantly. "Oh, you bought me this when I was a kid. Oh, you paid for my horseback riding. You paid for my music lessons." And now they're, you know, musicians.
Wow.
You know, and we've had foster children become foster parents. You know, and like Miss Hawaii coming on, you know, she wants to focus on foster children and children of abuse and neglect. What can she do to help? So there's so much community support out there. It's just amazing.
Well, I think that it's just something that we used to just, like you say, again, going back to the closing the windows, hide behind it. You just ignore it. It doesn't exist.
Right.
But it does exist.
Right.
And the best thing you can do is face that and
Yep.
help them get help.
Correct.
So for everybody out there listening, if after you've listened to this show, if you want some one-on-one discussion, how can they get a hold of you?
986-8634. And I'm always running around. So email is Paul at Maui, C as in Charlie, J as in John, C as in Charlie, .org. And then our website is actually www.mauicjc.org. Visit Facebook. It's always hopping.
You can visit Facebook. There's always something happening.
Yes.
It's like you say, it's a hard subject, but it's rewarding
Yeah.
when you can help someone. And I get the feeling that in many cases you help not only the child, but you help at least one of the parents.
Yes. A lot of times. You know.
You may not be able to help both of them, but at
Well,
least one
by
of them.
helping the child, you are helping the parent.
That's true.
You know, if the parent's stressed out that the kid's not going to have clothes, if the parents stressed out that they don't have food, and we send them to Maui Food Bank, whoever the service agency dealing with them, you know, that's a huge relief off of these parents or parent, or it could be a grandparent, it could be an uncle. There's so many caregivers out there that are helping these kids. It could not even be blood family. It could just be an Hanai mom that stepped in to help them out while the situation was going on. So,
Right.
but yeah, don't hesitate to call 986-8634, or again, it's Paul at mauicjc.org.
Thank you, Paul, for being
You're
on the
welcome.
show today. And we had the opportunity today to really go in depth a little bit and explain exactly what your program's about, how it interacts with at least 28 other organizations, the collaboration that happens at the Maui Nonprofit Directors, and how other communities wish they could get that kind of cooperation going between their nonprofits.
And I want to thank the Maui community. They're so generous to the Friends and other agencies here that, one thing with our extra funds, we don't bank it if we get extra money in the year. It goes back. The board's adamant about it. It goes back. Find a kid that needs it. Find a project that we can do that aligns to the mission. And they were extremely generous to us last year, and we never had to say no to no one for the whole year due to the
That's
generosity.
That's a challenge to meet, I tell you.
Yes.
Anyway, we want to thank you again for joining us and sharing these thoughts and some of your innermost activities. Maui Nonprofit Notes is sponsored as a community service by Pacific Source, the builder's choice. Give Paul and his staff a call at 986-0380 or stop by their showroom in the Waikapu Base Yard on East Oahe Way to see how they can help you with your building project. The Maui Nonprofit Directors Association's mission is to provide professional and personal support to nonprofit executive directors, their organizations, and the community of Maui. Today we visited with Paul Tonneson of the Friends of the Children's Justice Center Maui and got an update on what they're doing. We want to thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join us again next week right here on Wednesday at noon, when we'll be featuring representatives of 2 other member agencies of the Maui Nonprofit Directors Association. Until then, I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific and host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. Thanks again. Have a great week. Aloha.